She used the Mary Kay business to arrange trips to Reno, and Bruce Miller figured she was doing her job, so he never really questioned it.
I think she made almost 3 trips out there in 2 months' time.
When she was at home, Sharee was spending more and more time online with her chat room sweetheart, Reno Dudes.
She was on that computer as much as she could. She would take one to work with her. She had one set up at the house.
It was an odd habit for a newlywed, but it was one her husband had begrudgingly come to tolerate, if not accept. And besides, things between Bruce and Sharee seemed to be better than ever.
Family, friends, everybody said they were happy. It was a good marriage. Bruce was looking into adopting her children.
That is, until the night of November 8th, 1999. It was 8 o'clock in the evening. Bruce Miller was late coming home from work, and Sharee was getting worried.
Sharee had called about 7:30 or so. She was kind of frantic.
Bruce's brother Chuck and his wife Judy decided to drive out to B&D Salvage. Bruce's car was in the parking lot. At first, everything seemed to be okay. Then Chuck and Judy entered Bruce's office.
What they find inside horrifies them. Bruce is laying behind the counter in a pool of blood, sprawled out.
Chuck hollered, Bruce, Bruce, and no answer. And he went over to him and checked his pulse. No pulse, a lot of blood. Hollered. I called 911.
County 911. Yeah, I need a police and ambulance at D&D auto salvage. My brother-in-law owns it, and he hasn't come home in 2 hours, and he's laying on the floor, and there's blood. Okay, is he breathing?
I don't think so.
Chuck and Judy believed Bruce had had a heart attack, that he had fallen to the floor and bumped his head on the way down. But the cops saw the scene differently. Bruce Miller was no heart attack victim. Bruce Miller was a murder victim. It was November 8th, 1999, and the streets around B&D Auto Salvage were filled with police sirens and emergency vehicles. Inside, Sharee Miller's husband, Bruce Miller, lay dead on the floor of his office.
Bruce Miller was shot in the upper chest area. He had numerous puncture wounds from apparent shotgun buckshot.
A shotgun blast to the chest. But who would want to hurt a nice guy like Bruce?
Bruce had so many friends, it was unreal. I mean, I just couldn't believe why someone would, murder my brother.
After securing the crime scene, authorities delivered the bad news to Sharee.
When Sharee finds out, she just totally loses it. She's screaming and crying and wailing.
As Sharee reeled from the death of her husband, the cops continued searching for clues. At first, it looked like a robbery gone bad.
Bruce Miller was known to carry large amounts of cash in his pocket, and that cash was missing.
Despite the missing cash, the cops could find little else that suggested a robbery.
The police investigation was almost stymied from day one. There was virtually no evidence at the scene. They had initially no suspects and nowhere to go for quite a while.
They may not have had much evidence, but they did have plenty of bizarre behavior from Sharee that suggested there might have been more to Bruce Miller's death than a botched robbery.
2 days after the murder of her husband that she loved, supposedly, she's dancing in a bar in Otisville, Michigan, committing sex acts on the floor. I mean, that's not a grieving widow.
Within a few weeks, she had a live-in boyfriend, a local delivery man.
She had Jeff Foster, the Schwann man, move in. It was in December, so it was at a month after Bruce had died.
Sharee's behavior didn't gel with most people's notion of a grieving spouse. But that didn't mean Sharee murdered her husband. And when police ran down her alibi, it checked out perfectly.
She had a rock-solid alibi. She's there at her house when this murder occurs. She's on the phone at the time of the murder.
With no hard evidence to go on, the investigation ground to a halt. Then, In February of 2000, the cops received a bizarre tip, one that would blow the case wide open.
One afternoon, I got a call from an attorney out in Kansas City, Missouri. He had called and said, "Do you have a murder in your district? Because I have a briefcase that has some information for you."
The briefcase belonged to a former sheriff's deputy named Jerry Cassidy. Cassidy had recently committed suicide.
They had this briefcase that had a suicide note from Jerry Cassidy in it, explaining that he had killed Bruce Miller and why he killed Bruce Miller in conjunction with Sharee Miller.
How did an ex-cop from Kansas City know anything about the Bruce Miller case? Better yet, how did he know Sharee? Jerry Cassidy was a pit boss at Harrah's Casino in Reno, Nevada. He also spent a fair amount of time in internet chat rooms, chatting with Sharee Miller. Jerry Cassidy was Reno dudes.
Sharee came into Jerry's life when he was at a low point. His marriage was breaking up. He was in a new area where he didn't have friends. Jerry at the time was just absolutely ripe for the picking.
Jerry seems to have seen in Sharee a sense of someone he could connect with, and he seems to have put a lot of fantasies into her.
Searching Jerry's apartment, the cops quickly learned that Sharee used more than just hot talk to fuel his fantasies.
We found videos of Sharee Miller fondling herself.
On one of the tapes, Sharee masturbates to music.
But there was more. According to Cassidy's records, the sex between he and Sharee wasn't restricted to the cyber version. And Sharee's business trips to Reno had little to do with cosmetics.
Sharee would, as far as I've understood, do absolutely anything in the bedroom. And so it's like a smorgasbord. Jerry just was going, yes, I've hit the lottery.
The cops also discovered that Sharee had told Jerry that she was pregnant by him, but that her husband had beat her so badly she miscarried.
Sharee was able to create an entire fantasy world with Jerry online. She was able to tell him, you know, my husband is threatening and abusive towards me, or I'm pregnant, would you like to see a picture of the sonogram? And Jerry has no idea, so it really allows her to be more manipulative.
Manipulative? Yes. But that still didn't mean Sharee was involved in her husband's death. Then, among the transcripts of emails and instant messages, cops found the blueprints for Bruce Miller's murder.
They kind of laid out where to park, what lights would be on. It's deer hunting season, they won't hear the gunshot, and he referred to a lot of local information.
Jerry seems to follow that script to the letter.
But if Jerry Cassidy thought he was going to be with Sharee forever, once Bruce Miller was out of the way, he was dead wrong. Sharee told Jerry about her other boyfriends, and that she was no longer interested in seeing him.
He loved her. He would do anything for her. He murdered for her. He was so distraught by this, he couldn't live with himself, so he committed suicide.